place you do not know. Lech ilach, on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be.
This is the cake, Ilana. This is the cake because this is the 50th presentation, and again, unfortunately, there's no way we can eat it together, but imagine that we are having this cake. And so we will be driving to Samaria, which is quite a large area in the north central part of the state of Israel. Samaria is a biblical name of this region, which was populated by the 10 tribes of Israel, which later became the northern kingdom of Israel. And today, when we mention the name Samaria, Judean Samaria, so that automatically takes us to the disputed territories, the Palestinian territories, the question territories, whatever you would like to call it. And the moment you physically cross the green line, the moment you move into Samaria, so the landscape is different, the way the roads look different, the way people around you look different. The car plates are different because they are white instead of yellow. Yellow car plates are Israeli and the white are Palestinian. And then along the roads, depending on the season, you can see fruits and vegetables on display in this way, which is very typical to Arab countries. It is less typical to Israel. And now we are in the very end of the grape harvest season. So we stopped by and we got some grapes. They look wonderful. They were not so good actually, but you know, it was such a pretty photo, so why not? So we got some grape over here, and here on the left, this is the guayaba. We did not get a guayaba because we have a guayaba tree in our yard, so that's something we did not need. But then here on the left, as we took a left, there was another Palestinian guy selling black Turkish coffee. So we had coffee, and then we kept driving. And as you can see here, right in front of us, I mean, we were taking a left, okay? But straight forward, you can see two boards, like two very red boards. One is here and the other one is here. There's no way you can see what is said here, but it says entrance is forbidden to Israelis because this is area area A. This is the area which is controlled fully by the Palestinians, by the Palestinian government, and therefore, according to the Israeli jurisdiction, the Israeli citizens are not allowed to drive any further. And that's why it was such a special occasion for me to go to Sebastia, Samaria, the biblical town, and then now I will be taking to you there by Zoom, because normally this is out of reach for the Israelis. I mean, the place itself belongs to Israel. It is Area C. It is controlled by the Israelis, but unfortunately, it is like an island totally surrounded by the Palestinian controlled territories, and so there's no way for me as an Israeli citizen to visit Sebastia because I cannot cross into it. Okay, things are complicated around Judea and Samaria, and so these red boards, those of you who've been to Israel, you might remember, you could see it along the Jordan Valley, again, Judea and Samaria, anyhow, something which gives you a clue to where you are and the complicated political situation here. But we're not here to talk about politics. So where are we going to tour? Well, here on the left, you can see part of modern Israeli Google map. Here on the left, you can see Netanya. I believe most of you are familiar with Netanya. It is located some 22, 23 miles north of Tel Aviv, okay? So from Netanya, if you start driving on this road number 57, directly to the east, okay, well, you can't really do it because in between there are some Palestinian towns and cities, so you have to drive around. Okay, but that's a different topic. But if supposedly you drive from Netanya directly east on road 57, so you will reach Sebastia, which is right here in about an hour. That's it. That's
Julia,
how far it is.
could you use a bigger pointer?
Yeah. Yes, I will. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we start driving from Netanya. We are driving east along road number 57, and then and within an hour we get to here. This is the location of Sebastia, and later we will be driving to here. As you can see, this is right next to Nablus, one of the biggest Palestinian cities. Nablus, otherwise biblical Shechem. And this is where the Samaritan community live, okay? So on both sides of Nablus. In the biblical times, and now, well, those of you who listen to Professor Finkelstein, so he will totally disagree with this map, okay? Because this map is drawn according to the biblical description of the United Kingdom of David and Solomon. So some archaeologists would say that this is nonsense. Others would say, yes, this is true. We are not going to discuss this. But according to the Bible, David and Solomon had one united big kingdom, which is the whole area in blue. As you can see, it stretches north into Lebanon and Syria. It stretches east into Jordan. And then after King Solomon, that united kingdom split into two parts, into the Judean kingdom, and the capital of the Judean kingdom was Jerusalem, of course, and the northern kingdom, or the kingdom of Israel. That's what it says here in Hebrew, Mamlechet Israel, the kingdom of Israel. And the capital of this kingdom of Israel moved from one location to the other. Okay? The border was around here, more or less, a bit north of Jerusalem, a bit south of Beit El. Okay? Just a bit north of Jerusalem. So we are in Mamlechet Israel, we are in Samaria, around here. So the town and the area both are called Samaria, but Samaria is actually a Greek mispronounced Hebrew biblical name of Shomron. And that's what we read in Book of Kings. In the 31st year of Asa, king of Judah, Omri, and Omri is the father of famous King Ahab. Omri became king of Israel, and he reigned 12 years, 6 of them in Tirzah, and he bought a hill of Samaria from Shemer, okay? And built a city on the hill, calling it Samaria after Shemer, the name of the former owner of the hill. I don't know if it makes any sense to you. Why should he call a place Samaria after Shemer? I mean, it's not exactly the same. So when you speak Hebrew, it's much better because he called it Shomron after Shemer. And that was the city he built on top of a hill. And that became the capital of the kingdom of Israel in the times of Omri and Ahab and other kings after him. So we have the geographical area and the town both called Shomron, but the Greek, it was too difficult for them to pronounce Shomron, so they made it Samaria, and then the English version of the Bible keeps the Greek version of the name. So that's Samaria, okay? By the way, it has a great significance for the other part of the presentation about the Samaritans, but okay, let's talk about it later. And we made it, we were driving for about an hour, as I said, from Netanya, and we made it to Shomron, Samaria, or Sebastia. This is a great photo, I think. I mean, this is sort of a, it summarizes the weird, crazy situation of the Holy Land. You see, this is what you see when you get there. I mean, this photo was taken from the parking lot. So the car is parked more or less where I'm sitting now. And we are facing a nice big restaurant, which is non-functioning now because there are no tourists, but otherwise it's a big, nice restaurant and a big souvenir shop. And this is the Holy Land Sun. And actually this place gets quite a few tourists because for tourists, there's no problem whatsoever to make it to Sebastia because they don't have these restrictions we Israelis have in terms of getting there. And well, this place is beautiful, is biblical, and it also has a Christian significance to it. Okay, so that's something I will be referring to later. But since that was a very special location for Israelis to visit Sebastia, so we were guarded and protected and watched by the IDF. So what you can see here are Israeli soldiers. As you can see, they are wearing not just uniforms, but they are actually dressed for a fight. Thank God it was all nice, quiet, and we saw the Holy Land Sun only. But as you can see, they are ready for a battle because we are surrounded from all sides by the Palestinians, by this area A, which is off limits for the Israelis. Okay, just to show you the proximity of it, this structure belongs to a Palestinian, but it's located on the Israeli-controlled land, while this building right behind it, this is Palestinian on the Palestinian land, okay? So I can go shopping here, but I cannot go to the bathroom in here. That's how it works, all right? And well, just a few more photos. As you can see, the soldiers, they're not just dressed for a battle, but they also have a very well protected, shield car. And these are the private cars of the Israelis who came to visit. These are girls from a settlement. These girls are 18, 19 years old. You can see that they're religious. They're settlers. They live in a settlement nearby, and they are going to be guides for a field college. So their future duties will be guide tourists and Israelis around Samaria. And right above us all, you can see the Palestinian flag. Okay, because again, this is the invisible border between the Israeli land and the Palestinian land. So theoretically, we cannot get behind the flag. So it is weird and crazy. Right here, you can already see the pillars which belong to Sebastia. Sebastia is the name of the town as it was renamed and rebuilt by King Herod the Great. Behind here, you can see the yellow bus which belongs to these girls and the Palestinian flag once again. And since we came here as tourists, so the local Palestinians, they brought their camels, so we will be able not just to enjoy the ruins, but also ride camels. You know, tourists are tourists. And as you can see, one of these girls, she was more happy about the camel. It seems like the camel is happy about her. She was more interested in the camel rather than in pillars. And so you see, there was such a staircase, so you can sit down on a camel in much convenience. And here we start walking. We started walking, and archaeological sites are not built according to the historical timelines. So even though the first stage of Sebastia is the Old Testament, so we are talking about mid-9th century BCE, of course. But what you see first is a Roman theater. If you've been to Beit She'an, if you've been to Caesarea, so you can recognize the theater immediately. And this is the Roman theater as it was built and used by King Herod the Great. So this is something which was built about 2,000 years ago and excavated primarily by a delegation from Harvard University about 100 years ago. And more ruins and stones. So there's so much to excavate. Samaria is excavated only tiny little fractions of it. And as you walk, all of a sudden you can see that wall made of huge bricks just, just a tiny little fraction of it is unearthed, and you ask yourself, what is down there? And who knows? I mean, it could be treasures, it could be anything at all. On the left here, this is part of a wall, maybe a watchtower. It was not excavated again to say whether it is biblical or maybe from the Hasmonean period. So Sebastia is such a tempting place if you love archaeology. Once again, you see our soldiers who escort us. They're actually walking in circles around us as we are standing on a little hill looking at this large piece of excavations. And this is actually the most important and the most famous part of the excavations of Sebastia, which was mentioned by Professor Israel Finkelstein on his presentation, because this is believed to be the palace which was built by Omri, the father of Ahab, and Ahab himself. And then all of a sudden, you see, we have a lower piece of a pillar, which was placed by the Romans hundreds of years after the palace. So if that indeed is true, and this is the palace of Ahab, so this is the ivory from the so-called Ivory Palace. This is what the palace of Omri and Ahab is called. Look at these tiny little beautiful ivory made pieces, how delicate they are, how accurate they are. And the Ivory Palace is mentioned by this name in the Bible. So when these pieces of ivory were found, that was, it's like the description of the Bible, even though, again, archaeologically, you cannot be fully sure. There is a suggestion that Omri and Ahab, the two kings, are buried underneath the palace. But again, we need more excavation to prove it. Next to the palace, the Samaria pottery was found, again, something mentioned by Israel Finkelstein. And these are among the most ancient inscriptions made in archaic Hebrew. There's no way I can read it today, but the scholar can. There are hundreds of pottery pieces of pottery shards, and the inscription they did describe the crops, mainly olive oil and wine, which was produced in different locations in different towns of Samaria and were sent to the king. Unfortunately, we don't have the name of the king mentioned here. Archaeologists believe that it's either Ahab or Jeroboam II, but these crops were sent either to the king or to one of his officials. And these are definitely among the most ancient Hebrew inscriptions ever found. And according to some archaeologists, this is the most ancient Hebrew inscription found. And again, they dated back to mid-9th century, end of 9th century BCE. We were looking at this area on the left. This is what believed to be the Ivory Palace. When the Ivory Palace was excavated, they just needed to put the soil somewhere, so they made this hill on the right. So this is a tiny little artificial hill. So I was standing on top of this hill and made the movie of the palace. So you need to use your imagination, and then there will be no hill on the right, and there will be a beautiful palace on the left, decorated with ivory and, well, other decorations we never found. And Ahab and his nasty wife Jezebel would be living in this beautiful palace. That was their main palace, but they also had another winter palace in the valley of Jezreel. So if you've been to Israel, most probably you were driving along the Jezreel Valley, and so you can see Mount Gilboa on your right-hand side or left-hand side, and then across the road you can see Tel Israel, the hill of Jezreel, where the winter palace of Ahab and Jezebel was identified. So to finish the story of the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom, as you can see here, this is the book of Kings, second book of Kings. It tells us about Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up to attack Hoshea, king at the time, and the king of Assyria invaded the entire land. Okay, this is something to keep in mind. Invaded the entire land of the kingdom of Israel, marched against Samaria, and laid siege to it for 3 years. Okay, a siege for 3 years, that means that this place was incredibly strong and so well fortified. But eventually, the king of Assyria captured Samaria and deported the Israelites to Assyria. Okay, that's the end of Samaria. And this is also the end of the kingdom of Israel. And this is also the end of the known history, or at least documented history, of the 10 tribes of Israel. Because as you probably know, to begin with, there were 12 tribes, but then the kingdom split, and then the 10 tribes, the northern kingdom, the big kingdom, the mighty kingdom, was captured. They were sent into an exile to Assyria, and they got lost. So we are now missing 10 tribes of Israel. Some Ethiopians believed to be the descendants of one of the 10 tribes, Dan. Some Jews from northern India, okay, northern India border with Nepal, they believe themselves to be the descendants of Menashe, the tribe of Menashe, which lived in this area of Samaria, but most of them are lost. We really don't know where they are, while the tribe of Judah and Benjamin and Shimon have survived, and these are the origins of present-day Jews. Okay, we are Jews because, we are Jews because we are descendants of mainly Judah. So this is the story in the Bible, okay? And I just want you to keep in mind this captured Samaria and deported the Israelites to Syria, okay? All right. So the biblical town is ruined and lost and abandoned. It was later restored by the Hasmoneans, and then it was restored, rebuilt, and enlarged by King Herod the Great. And then we have the Muslim period, which is nothing special. And then we have the Crusaders, and the Crusaders, as they built the Crusader kingdom of the Holy Land, they decided, and don't ask me why, but they decided that inside here, okay, these are the ruins of the church of John the Baptist. That's what it looks like, okay? We are inside the church now. And you see here in this corner, there is something underground, okay, in the left corner. This is the apsis, which is facing east. This is where the altar used to be. And here there's another little room here. Okay, so we are inside the church of John the Baptist. Oh, sorry. No. Okay, so this little underground part here, okay, this is what it looks like when you come closer. It's actually quite a deep underground pit, okay, some stairs leading downstairs, and then there is a thick door, metal modern door, which is locked. And that's because the Christian tradition from the Crusader period is that the head of John the Baptist, remember he was decapitated, that's a sad story from the New Testament, but when he lost his head, so the body and the head were buried separately. And according to the Crusaded period tradition, the head of John the Baptist was buried down there in Sebastia, which makes it, of course, very important for Christians. And we came back to this camel. Now the camel is having a break, and we are on our way to Mount Gerizim, which is our next destination. And since the camel is having a break, so we will use this car. And let's drive. So as we are driving, as we are on our way to Mount Grizim, we're going to be driving for about 45 minutes, maybe. Okay, actually, we could make it in about 20 minutes, but in order to make it in 20 minutes, we have to cross areas which is totally off limits for Israelis. So we are driving sort of around. So within 45 minutes, we will make it. And now this is the time for us to consider the question: who are you, Good Samaritan? I mean, most of us are familiar with the term of Good Samaritan, and the Good Samaritan is an expression from the New Testament. There is a story, there's a parable told by Jesus to his disciples and other listeners about a guy who was walking down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was robbed and he was wounded. And then there was a Kohen who walked by and ignored him. And then there was a Levi who walked and ignored him. And then there was a Samaritan who actually helped him and brought him to an inn and took very good care of him. This parable was told because the Samaritans were very old-time enemies of the Jews. The Samaritans who inhabited the area called Samaritan, or otherwise Shomron, they hated the Jews, and the Jews hated them. And the Samaritans were actually stronger than the Jews, and so there were quite a few confrontations. And these confrontations were so often that the Jews would not normally visit Samaria. They would not even normally cross Samaria. I mean, if you look at the map of Israel, so you see that the shortest way from the Galilee to Jerusalem is across Samaria. And then it would make sense that the Jews from the Galilee on the regalim, on the high holidays, when they want to visit the temple, they would be crossing Samaria. They never did. It was too dangerous for them. And so that parable was told because the Samaritans were the enemies. And what Jesus was trying to say is that they're good people. And Steve, what you sent me, this little YouTube about it, was very nice. Along this road from Jerusalem to the Dead Sea to Jericho, there's a beautiful museum, which is called the Good Samaritan Mosaic Museum, with beautiful mosaics from all over Judea, Samaria, and even the Gaza Strip. And the museum is located where the tradition believes the Good Samaritan helped this guy. All right, so right now we understand that Samaritans did not like the Jews and vice versa. But who are they? And this is the biggest question, because the question is simple. Where do they come from? Who are the Samaritans? Well, the answer is very much different whether we ask a Jew or we ask a Samaritan. Okay, the answers will be totally different. So before we refer to this, the holiest place for the Samaritans, and this is where they always lived, this is Mount Gerizim. Okay, this is Mount Gerizim, the one on the left, and the one on the right next to it is Mount Ebal, okay, or Ival in Hebrew. And this big inhabited area, this is Nablus, this is Shechem, and this is where the Samaritans lived ever since they exist, and that's about 25 centuries at least. Okay, they moved from Nablus to the top of Mount Grizim in the late 80s, and they built this little neighborhood, and this is where they live today, and this is where we are going to visit now, which is called Kiryat Luza. Okay, so that's on Mount Grizim. So Mount Grizim is the sacred mount for the Samaritans. And that's because, you see, the book of Deuteronomy tells us, whatever is written here, well, I am God, setting before you today a blessing and a curse. And, well, you can read for yourself, but then it specifically says that you are to proclaim on Mount Gerizim the blessing. Okay? For the Samaritan understanding, to proclaim on Mount Gerizim the blessings means that this is the blessed mount. In other words, this is the holy mount. In other words, whatever we Jews tell about Mount Moriah is Jerusalem should be told about Mount Gerizim. In other words, for the Samaritans, Jerusalem is nothing. Temple Mount is nothing. The temple was a total misunderstanding of the true will of God. So if you are a Samaritan, whatever we say about Jerusalem, you say about Mount Gerizim. So, having said that, welcome to Kiryat Luza, the community of the Samaritans on top of Mount Gerizim. You see, we started driving around 4, and by the time we made it to Mount Gerizim, it's already dark, as you can see. And this would welcome you as you get there. I love Grizim, that's in English. While here on the left, well, this is not the photo I took, you see a inscription which is written in the Samaritan language, which is very similar to Hebrew. The language is similar to Hebrew. The letters are very similar to ancient Hebrew letters, and that says, "Welcome to Mount Grizim." As you make it to the community, you are welcomed by a synagogue. And since the Samaritans, among other differences between the Samaritans and the Jews, they don't have the oral Torah. I mean, they read the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and whatever is said there, this is what they do according to their best understanding. They don't have the rabbinical teaching. They don't have Mishnah. They don't have Talmud. They don't have all these additions, okay, to the Bible. And therefore, well, this is a synagogue which is decorated by these symbols of the 12 tribes. As you can see, the symbols here are very similar to the traditional Jewish symbols because that comes from the Bible. So for instance, this is Dan, and here this is Dan. That's Dan in Samaritan scripture, okay? And well, synagogue is a holy place, is a holy ground. And as God told Moses from the burning bush, don't come close, take your sandals off your feet, for the place you are standing on is holy ground. So same is true for the synagogue. So whenever you want to visit a synagogue, what you should do is take your shoes off. This is something very similar to a mosque, right? Again, it comes from the same idea. And same happens in the Karaite synagogues. This is a private house. This is the entrance. Here, this is an entrance to another private house. And one of the differences, again, something which is very easy to see, is the Samaritans don't seem to have a mezuzah. I mean, this is a typical Jewish mezuzah, you know, with a parchment inside with certain words from the Bible. But this is not what the Samaritans understand from the commandment to put a mezuzah on your doorways. And therefore, here, you see, this is a mezuzah, okay? This is a Samaritan mezuzah, which is normally above the door. Sometimes it can be, you know, next to it. And then it doesn't have necessarily the same words. I mean, if you check the Jewish mezuzah all over the world, so the words will be the same words. It's Parashat Shema and Parashat Ki Shemoah. while the Samaritans, they understand that mezuzah is there to protect them, right? The mezuzah is there to make that connection between people and God. And therefore, they use different phrases, different blessings, different texts for the mezuzah, and the mezuzah will be exposed in this way. Okay. By the way, this is a relatively new tradition because, well, today we have two Samaritan communities. One is here on Mount Grizim, and the other one is in Holon. Holon is a town next to Tel Aviv, okay, in the same Dan area. So every single Samaritan house will have a mezuzah, which would look more or less like that. But before the state of Israel was declared, the Samaritans didn't feel so confident. They did not feel safe enough to place such a big, massive mezuzah on their doorways. And so they would place a little mezuzah inside here, so it will be hidden. You could not see it from outside. And then only when, you know, they felt more confident, they started placing these mezuzahs outside. And well, this is the street of Mount Grizim, and this is the other side. And here we have a huge house. I mean, this is big enough to make a condominium, but this house belongs to this person. And he is the Samaritan priest, and his name is Yosef Cohen. Okay, he is Cohen. Cohen is a priest, of course. There are basically four main Samaritan families, and one of them is a Cohen family. And as you can see, he has a door. He has a large table. That's his office. They have wonderful bananas from Jericho. And he has a cell phone, a very modern, advanced cell phone. And right here, this is the pomegranate juice he brought us. It's not just pomegranate. You know, freshly squeezed pomegranate juice is always great. But this one is special because it is blessed. Okay. And the reason why this particular pomegranate juice is blessed is because it was made of pomegranates, which were part of the sukkah. Okay, that's something I will show you later. This is Yosef Cohen being a guest of a very wealthy sheikh from the Emirates. And he is a guest of Burj El Arab hotel in Dubai, which is one of the most expensive, or maybe the most expensive hotel in the world. He did not pay himself. He was a guest of the sheikh, so the sheikh paid for him. And when that photo was made just a few years ago, but before Israelis could travel to the United Emirates. But the Samaritans, who used to live in Nablus before, you know, forever and ever, but before 1967 for sure. So these Samaritans, they have three citizenships. They have an Israeli citizenship. They have a Palestinian citizenship, and they have a Jordanian citizenship, okay, which is not bad. So Yosef was traveling with his Jordanian citizenship. As you can see, he is sitting on a wheelchair here, but he fully recovered. He was wounded, and then he was recovered, so he's doing very well. And he told me that this is a beautiful hotel, so if you feel like paying around, I think it was $3-something thousand US per night. So this is a highly recommended. Okay, so back to the questions. Who are the Samaritans? Back to Book of Kings. Remember that the king of Assyria ruined Samaria and sent the people of Samaria to an exile, right? And then instead of them, he brought people from Babylon. I mean, what the king of Assyria did, and this is something we know from the Assyrian sources as well, the Assyrians like to exchange people. You know, you take people from here, you put them there. You take people from there, you put them here. And then you're in control. So the king of Assyria brought people from Babylon and Cuthah and this and that, and settled them in the towns of Samaria to replace the Israelites. All right? That's from the Bible. But then they did not know how to worship Lord. So he, not the king, the Lord, sent lions among them, and they killed some of the people. And then the king of Assyria sent a priest. Okay, you see, have one of the priests you took captive from Samaria go back to live there and teach the people what the God of the land requires. And these people learned how to worship the God, the true God, our God, but they worshiped the Lord, but they also served their own gods. So this is the Jewish Bible, but this is not the Samaritan Bible. So if you ask a Jew, this is simple. The Samaritans are these people brought by the king of Assyria from Babylon and whatever to settle in Samaria. Okay? If you ask the Samaritans, they would say, God, no. We are the descendants of Manasseh and Ephraim, the tribes of the northern kingdom, and we are called Samaritans not because of Samaria, okay? Well, now we have to use a little bit of Hebrew to understand. In Hebrew, Samaria is Shomron, right? The root of the word Shomron is Shamar, Shin Mem Resh. Shamar means keep, or guarded, or protected, Shamar, okay? So the Samaritans would tell you that they're not called Samaritans Shomronim because of Shomron. They are called Shomronim because they are Shomrim. They are the guard. They are the keepers of the true knowledge and the true Bible. All right? Why not? While if you ask a scholar, and actually we had some genetic tests performed on the Samaritan community, so the scholar will tell you that both are right. The Samaritans are a combination, are a mixture of people brought from elsewhere and the locals. Because, you know, when the king of Assyria moved the Israelites to Assyria, he could never move them all. Now, the genetic test also proved that there is a difference. Well, it's a bit too complicated for me to explain, but there is a way to tell which part of your genetics came from your mother line and which part of your genetic came from your father's line, okay? So according to the genetic test, most of the father lineage is Kohen, meaning Jewish, while the mother lineage is foreign. So probably the Samaritans are a combination of Kohanim, of priests who stayed in the land of Israel, or maybe were brought by the king of Assyria, and the local women and the Assyrian women. So they're both. On top of Mount Grizim, we have a national park, and this is where the Samaritans believe the temple, the true temple, used to be. Okay, now we have huge, impressive ruins. We don't really have traces of the Samaritan temple, maybe because it was totally ruined and erased by the Roman temple, which was built later, and then the church. But if there was a Samaritan temple, and the Samaritans believed there was, so that's where it was. Here you can see stones, and these stones believed by the Samaritans to be the altar, which was built by Joshua bin Nun as he made it to the blessed Mount of Grizim. And down here, this is an old photo. This is from the beginning of the 20th century. Before the restorations, you can see this is where this wall is, which was restored by the National Parks Authority. But what is important here is this empty, flat rock. There's somebody sitting on it. And this is the foundation rock. I mean, if you ask a Jew, so the foundation rock, Even Hashtiyah, is on the Temple Mount, right? Right below the Golden Dome. But if you ask a Samaritan, here it is. So if this is the foundation rock, where was the binding of Isaac? Here, right? Where was the temple? Here, etc. By the way, this lady, her name is Leti, and she's Filipino, and she's married to a former student of mine, and they visited Mount Grizim just recently, so he sent me the photos. Here on the left, you can see a cross, which means that on top of Mount Grizim, there used to be a huge church, but we know that from the Crusader period. And here it is. This is the Samaritan Bible. Don't try to read it. This is the Bible which is being written now. I mean, not written, being copied by Yosef Cohen in these very days. And it looks like that because he's copying this Bible from an old Bible which looked like that. There is a difference between the Jewish Bible and the Samaritan Bible. First of all, the Jewish Bible, as we all know, have the Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, right? We have quite a few books. While the Samaritan Bible, they have only the Torah. They have only the Torah, only the 5 books of Moses, and the Deuteronomy lacks the last 5 phrases of it. And then there are also slight differences between the books themselves. What is the most important here? We have the 10 Commandments, and same is true for the Samaritans, but these are not the same commandments. Actually, none of them are same, but there is one difference which is crucial. Okay, now here on the right, this is the Jewish Bible. Okay, the Bible as we know it. This is the book of Leviticus, and here on the left, this is the Samaritan Bible. Okay, so again, here on the right, this is the Jewish Bible. And here on the left, this is the Samaritan Bible, all right? Okay. What you can see here down below are the commandments. If you can read Hebrew, so it says, Lo tirtzach, okay, don't kill. Same is true for the Samaritans. Lo tignov, same. Lo tignov means don't steal, all right? And then lo tinaf, okay? So we do agree here, but the first commandment of the Jewish Bible is Anochi Adonai Elohecha. I am your God. The Samaritans, they do have it written, but they don't think this is a commandment because the Samaritans here, they have another commandment which we don't have. Okay, what is this commandment? Well, this commandment is actually a fraction from another place in the Bible, and this one mentions Mount Gerizim. And therefore, for the Samaritans, the 10th commandment is Mount Gerizim is the holiest place. Okay. All right, and here Yosef Cohen will read the 10 commandments from the Samaritan Bible in Samaritan.
סרט הדברות שמונית בספר דברים. הראשונה, ענה כי שמה אלוהת אשר אוסת מיארס מצרים. השנייה, לא תשע את שמה אלוהת אל שוב. השלישית, שמור את יום השבת הקדש הוא. הרביעית, כבד את אבק ואת אמק. החמישית לא תרסה, השישית לא תענוג.
Okay, so we made it to the 5th commandment. I'm sure you don't understand. Even I cannot understand. Even though when he was speaking very, very slow, I could more or less get it. But this is what the Samaritan language sounds like. Similar to Hebrew, more similar to Aramaic. And that's the language they speak. You know, they speak Arabic, and they speak this strange, weird, different. Okay. Now, after I begged him, he brought these. You see, there are 14 books here, and this is how the Samaritan Bible is divided. And that's what it looks from inside. Again, Samaritan language. He told me that this book is about 1,400 years old, and this is the oldest Samaritan book. Frankly, I don't think so. It doesn't look so old to me, but who knows? And this is definitely a holy book, a holy object, the Holy Samaritan Bible, and he keeps it in a special safe. So it was a very, it was a special experience for me to see it. And the difference between the modern Hebrew letters up here, and these are the two versions of the Samaritan letters. You can write it this way, you can write it this way, but you can see the difference. This one here is a Samaritan Ketubah, written in pure Samaritan. It's a huge page. You can see the size of Yosef. You can see the size of the page, and it's 300 years old. This Ketubah, and these marks here. This is the Samaritan Nikud. The Samaritan vowels. So even the Nikud is different from ours. This is the Samaritan Sukkah. This is the most beautiful holiday to visit the Samaritans, because you see in the Bible, both our Bible and Samaritan Bible, it says that on the first day you are to take branches from luxuriant tree, palms, willows, and other leafy trees. Okay, so in Hebrew it says Etz Hadar, and Etz Hadar, which is a citrus tree, was understood by the rabbis as etrog. Okay, but the Samaritan says, hey, read the Bible. Do you see any etrog here? No, there is no etrog, so there's no reason why we should care about etrog. What we need to do is to take fruits, decorations, and make it beautiful. That's it. Now you see it says live in temporary shelters, so sukkot. So for the Jewish tradition, the sukkah must be temporary. But the Samaritan says, no, it doesn't say temporary shelters. In Hebrew, it says sukkah. What is a sukkah? Well, we're not sure. So anyhow, what the Samaritans do for Sukkot, they make amazing, beautiful, fruity decoration, as you can see here, of the ceiling of their living room. So this is the living room of Yosef Cohen, and this is Gilad. This is my former student. You just met his wife, Letty, before. And that's what the sukkah looked like. Unfortunately, I could not go there on Sukkot and take photos because of the COVID, But normally, we have special tours to the Samaritan communities for Sukkot. It's really pretty. And then you see the pomegranate. So in the end of Sukkot, they take all these fruits off, and then they make pomegranate juice, which is a blessed juice because that was part of the sukkah. Okay. Well, Passover. As you know, the Jews don't make live sacrifices ever since we have no temple. But since the Samaritans never cared about the temple and they read the Bible only, so they still have Passover sacrifices. This is Ilana, I totally agree with you. This is the gate, which is open for Passover, and then you have like big grass field, and you see these beans here maybe. I've been to one offering. I was sick for 2 weeks later. And here, okay, we have that. That was on our news a few years ago. Let me show you just a few minutes. All right, that's what the Passover sacrifice looked like. They make these huge fireplaces. They sacrifice over 50 animals, which are brought. Ilana, don't listen. They are dressed, you see, these are the priests and these are the knights. And like every Samaritan from all over Israel will come and participate in, and they would put this blood on their faces, just as the Jews did during the real Passover. And what the Samaritans would tell us, as that's what they say, that the Jews don't make Passover sacrifice. You only do the seder, you only do the order, you only eat. But we are keeping the tradition. Remember, they are the Shomronim. They are the ones who actually keep the true tradition. And these are the Israelites who came to see the Passover sacrifice. And this is like totally crazy event. Okay, Ilana, we are back. Okay, we're done. So Sukkot is for everybody. Passover is not for everybody. Okay, and Shavuot is the most mystical, the most beautiful. They welcome Shavuot on top of Mount Grizim, where we saw before, lifting this Torah scroll. You see, they believe that this Torah scroll was written 13 years after Joshua ben Nun crossed the Jordan River into the land of Israel. It was written up here in Mount Grizim. And if this is true, so this Torah scroll is about 3,000 years old. Well, you know, as always, some scholars doubt it and believe that the Torah scroll was written only in the 11th century or so, but who knows? This is the holiest Torah scroll. They use it for the 3 high holidays only. The rest of the time, it's sealed and locked in a safe. And yeah. And just to finish this, well, I believe amazing story about the Samaritans. You see, the Samaritans, they have a problem. And the problem is that there are not that many Samaritans left. In the past, the population of Samaritans is estimated over 1 million. We know that in the Byzantine times, the Samaritans were actually a big threat to the Byzantine Empire. But then wars and diseases and assimilation brought them almost to an extinction. In the beginning of the 20th century, there were a bit over 120 Samaritans left. That's it. And therefore, since they stick to marrying each other only, so they were facing lots and lots of genetic problems. Today, there are about 800 Samaritans. Again, that's it. I mean, not all over the world, but there are only 800 Samaritans all over the world, and there are only 2 Samaritan communities, one of them on Mount Grizim, and the other one is in Holon, as I said. And again, they have way too many genetic problems, and they don't have enough people to marry. Also because there were much more men than women. For who knows why, but somehow there are simply more men than women, and so there are many bachelors, and they could not afford themselves. And so about 20 years ago, Yosef Cohen, the one who is welcoming us, he went to Ukraine. He went to Ukraine. I'm serious. This is the story he told me, okay? He went to Ukraine. He went to a matchmaker, and he told him that, hey, I'm a Samaritan. Doesn't matter that the other guy never heard of it, but anyhow, I'm a Samaritan, and what I need are virgins. I need young virgins who will be willing to convert to Samaritanism, move to Israel, and marry young Samaritan boys. And this is Nastya. She was 16 years old at the time, and she said yes. So she proved a virgin. She came to Mount Grizim. She married his, not his son, but his nephew. And she became the first Ukrainian who converted to Samaritanism and moved to Mount Grizim. So that was about 20 years ago. And ever since, they keep bringing more and more Ukrainian brides, which of course convert. So they first convert and then they get married. You don't normally get divorced. You do normally have children. You have to be fully 100% obedient to the Samaritan traditions. And then you can be happy. Okay. So, well, I could talk about Samaritans much more than that, but okay, we are done. And now I can see that I forgot the L in the hotmail. Guys, thank you. This is it. I will stop share. And if you have any questions, Ilana, you seem to be shocked. Listen, this is nothing comparing to what I felt when I was actually there standing by the pit and looking at this sacrificed meat, and then you have flakes of flesh all over you, and ashes coming. That's for the whole night, and I will never forget it. I will never do it again. So you watch just a short video. Sorry. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we are done. Let's see if we have any questions here. Okay. What road is this on? 90? No, it's a bit off road number 60. It's inland. Road number 90 is east from the road we took to get to Mount Grizim and Sebastia. Okay, how did you get permission to go there? Well, I did not get it myself, but certain organizations, they can, if they have enough audience, so then they can apply to the military authorities, and then they can get approval, and then they publish that certain day, certain hour, Israeli citizens can come and they will be guarded by the military and all that. So I just, it was an opportunity to me because it was announced by this Shomron college. Assyrian policy to reduce attachment to the land. Yeah, so well, this is the somebody said that when the Israelites were moved to Assyria, so the Samaritans were brought in. So, well, this is again, this is the Hebrew version of the story. The Samaritans do not speak Aramaic. They do not. They speak Samaritan language, which is quite similar to Aramaic, but it is not the same language. We have a few communities in Israel still speaking Aramaic, and this is a different language. Okay, they are related, but it's not the same. Sample pagan. Okay. The Samaritan Torah still uses the ancient Paleo-Hebrew alphabet. Again, it is not exactly same. It is similar to the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet, but it is not the same one. Suppose if we compare the Samaritan Bible with the inscriptions from the First Temple period, which is the archaic Hebrew alphabet, so it is not the same. Actually, I have another slide with comparison of the letters, but it's not that important, I think. Do they serve in the IDF? Well, the Samaritans who live in Holon, yes, they do serve in IDF as, average Israeli citizen. The Samaritans from Mount Grizim, they do not serve in IDF because they have Palestinian citizenship as well. And in terms of taxes and municipality, Mount Grizim is part of Nablus. So, the kids go to school in Nablus and they go shopping in Nablus, and most of them work in Nablus. So their connection to the Palestinian population is much more intense than the connection to the Jewish population of Samaria. And so, for all these reasons, they do not release from military service. Mitochondria, yes, exactly. Where there is a true explanation about mitochondrial DNA, which is the mother DNA, and the chromosome Y, which is the father DNA. Yeah. Samaritans open their sukkahs to visitors to see. Yeah, that's true. Same is true for Mount Grizim, but not this year. What the conversion process is? Yes. Well, the conversion process is very simple, much simpler comparing to the Jewish Giyur, because, well, you know, maybe simply because they're very much interested in girls being converted. So what girls do, they move to the Samaritan community. They live there for 6 months. And they study, of course, you know, they just study. It's not that they go to an ulpan, but they simply, you know, they live within a community, they learn about the traditions. And after 6 months, if they decide that they want to convert, so they go to a priest and they say, I want to be Samaritan. And this is approved by the priest, and this is it. Okay, which is much simpler. All right. Why did he choose Russians? Well, I guess I did not ask him this specific question. I guess that if he would be trying to bring, let's say, American virgins to become Samaritans, I don't think that would work. He simply went to Ukraine because it was very poor. It was immediately after the collapse of the Soviet Union. He described this little village where this first bride, Nasty, lived. They had no running water. They had no bathroom in-house. It was, you know, outdoors, somewhere in the yard. And she had no perspective for future. And then he came. He was quite wealthy. He was nice. He offered a handsome room, a large house with running water, with a car, education for future kids. What else do you need? So I guess that was the reason. Yeah, I guess so. A few years ago, our Sorel group volunteered with the KFIR. Oh, Kfir division near back on Samaria. Okay. We noticed that there was much construction in that part of Samaria. Are those new construction sites considered settlement? Well, sure. The definition of a settlement is a Jewish Israeli building, okay, town, village, whatever, at the disputed territories. So if you are a Jew building your home in Samaria or Judea, whatever was Jordanian before 1967, so by definition, this is a settlement. Okay, it doesn't matter when it was constructed. The Ukrainian girls, amazing. Do they stay? Yes, they stay. None of them left. None of them left, which means that the Samaritans are good people. They provided good enough, you know, living for them, and probably they did not have much to lose. I asked Yosef whether Nasta's parents ever visited, and he said, oh yeah, sure, of course, they came here quite often. So, you know, they came here, they came back, and do the Palestinians aren't interested or able to find out more about the archaeological site? Well, they are not. I'm not sure they're interested in archaeology in general, and they don't have the funds. I mean, we always speak of how little we excavated because we don't have the money. It is even more true for the Palestinians. As far as I know, Palestinians don't make archaeological excavations. Yeah. All right. Has been many
Altercations.
What is it? Sorry.
Like fights.
Fights between the Israelis and Palestinians in the area. No. Fortunately, it's really nice, quiet, peaceful as much as it can. We only hope that it will stay that way, you know. What type of occupations do they have? Everything. I mean, Yosef has 4 children, 4 boys. Okay, so he needed to import 4 brides from Ukraine, which is problematic. Anyhow, so one of them is engaged in trade of fresh fish. So he drives every morning to Jaffa, and then he brings fresh fish and seafood to Nablus. The other one is an electrical engineer. The third one is an accountant, and the fourth, and I don't remember. And the little one is still in university studying. I'm not sure what. So anyhow, they have all sorts of different professions. They don't work in the Samaritan community simply because there are almost no businesses. I mean, there is a little museum, there is a grocery store, and that's it. So most of them work in Nablus, being the closest city. All right. I missed, okay, Erlen, I missed what the different commandment. Can you please repeat? Okay, so the Jews believe that the first commandment is, I am your God. Okay, simply the statement that God is one God. So this is the first commandment for the Jews. While the Samaritans, they have it in their Bible, but they don't consider it to be the first commandment. Okay, so they have the 10th commandment about Mount Grizim being the holiest place, okay, which we Jews don't have. They call them priests and not rabbis. True, the term rabbi is a later word. It's not the word which is used in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses, so they don't use this term. Rabbi is a Jewish term. They use the term priest, kohen. Okay. Do they observe Saturday at their Shabbat? Yes, of course. They observe it actually much stricter than we, the Jews, observe it. I mean, not myself, but Orthodox Jews, because again, we have these rabbinical understanding. For instance, no matter how Orthodox you are, but you can have the Shabbat plate, right? I mean, you have a Shabbat heater, and then you cook the food, you put it on the heater, and then you can have hot food for Shabbat, right? Which is totally impossible for the Samaritans. They don't have Shabbat heater, they don't have Shabbat plate, they don't, okay? So they eat cold food only. They never leave their community on Shabbat. We, the Jews, we have something called Tchum Shabbat. So there is an area surrounding the place we live in, and this is where we are able to travel, which is okay to travel on Shabbat. It is restricted, but there is some limit to it. While for the Samaritans, no, you stay in your own community. You don't go away. And there are other restrictions as well. So actually, if you want to be observant, it is more difficult to be an observant Samaritan rather than observant Jew. Just another example which shocked me, for Yom Kippur, okay, the rabbinical understanding is that if you're sick or you just delivered, or there's some excuses when you don't have to fast on Yom Kippur, for the Samaritans, it doesn't exist. Everybody, even if you are a day old, must fast on Yom Kippur. No excuses accepted ever. And so on Yom Kippur, the Samaritan communities, you can hear screaming babies because they do not understand the idea of Yom Kippur, and they cannot eat or drink anything. So it's better to stay Jewish. What kind of a fruit tree I mentioned? I have a guyava. Well, actually, I have quite a few, but I mentioned a guyava one. Okay, this is very interesting. The DNA. Is there a consideration that the Samaritans are part of the Jewish DNA. Yes, of course, that's exactly what I said. I mean, the Samaritans, they keep part of the Jewish DNA. So we are related. The Jews are more related among themselves rather than they are related to Samaritans, but the Samaritans are more related to the Jews rather than to local Arabs, let's say. Okay, so they are, scientifically, they are a mixture of the Jews who stayed here, the 10 tribes, and the local people who were brought by the Assyrians. All right, we have no further questions.
Wow, Julia, your magic carpet has worked again. For almost an hour and a half, you have taken us on an Arabian Nights tour, several thousand miles away and a couple of centuries ago. That's remarkable. Thank you for your 50th anniversary. Now
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed it myself. I mean, it was great for me to go and talk to Yosef. And, there's so many other stories that just didn't have the time. But even though it's such a small community, but there are a few Kohanim, a few priests there. So he is, he doesn't like, to say the least, the other Kohanim family, which runs the museum. So he believes that they made it wrong. And, there are people everywhere, but it is, again, it would take us half a day to visit Sebastia and Mount Grizim at the same time. And then you can go to Nablus, which is off limits for me, but maybe some other time I will show you at least the view from Mount Gerizim over Nablus.